you are all in for an incredible treat this evening. We have two fantastic authors with us. Marcy Dermansky is the author of critically acclaimed novels Very Nice, The Red Car, Bad Marie, and Twins. She's received fellowships from the MacDowell Colony and the Edward F. Albee Foundation, and she lives with her daughter in Montclair, New Jersey. Weike Wang was born in Nanjing, China, and grew up in Australia, Canada, and the US. She's a graduate of Harvard University, and she earned her undergrad degree in chemistry and her doctorate in public health. Her first novel, Chemistry, received the Penn Hemingway Award for debut fiction, the Plowshares John C. Zekaris First Book Award, and the Whiting Award. Hurricane Girl is a staff pick and a favorite here at RJ Julia. Booklist calls it eminently relatable in a world filled with pitfalls for women who try to figure out what they want for themselves. So without further ado, I am going to pass things over to our guests of honor. Take it away, Marcy and Weike.
Hi, everyone. I'm Weike. Marcy, you have cats, right? Ginger and... Who's... Oh, wow.
Cat number one.
Okay, so if you're going to pick up your cat, I should pick up my dog. This is Biscuit. Biscuit and Ginger?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, you know, if they could write, maybe I could go on a vacation or something like that.
All right. Okay.
So I feel like I've known you for a long time, just because the first book I read of yours was The Red Car, and I've just followed you ever since. And then I sort of like stalked you on Instagram, and then now we're like sort of email pen pals, even though this is the first time we met face to face. I wondered if before we got into conversation, if you wanted to read like for 2 minutes.
Let's do that. And I'm just going to read a really short amount. I like to read with a novel just from like the very beginning of the book.
Okay.
I don't have to do any kind of introduction. Okay. Okay. Allison Brody bought a beach house. She was 32 years old. She was sick of everybody and everything. All she wanted to do, more than anything really, was swim. The beach house was small. It was in North Carolina in foreclosure. She'd put down cash, emptying her accounts, everything that she had. She used money saved from waitressing, money saved from a small inheritance after her father died almost a year ago. She'd sold the script too and made some okay money from that. A solid chunk. It was a horror script. It was not necessarily make a good film, but a famous actress had agreed to star in it. And so there could be more money, more scripts, success. Allison had been seen as a movie producer's pretty younger girlfriend. She could have been known in her own right. Probably it had been stupid to leave Los Angeles just when her career started taking off, and there were so many places to swim. The movie producer, for instance, had a beautiful swimming pool. Maybe leaving him had been stupid. Maybe Allison wanted to create art one day after she swam. Maybe one day she would want to have a cat. The movie producer was allergic to cats. Maybe she actually wanted to live alone, and certainly not with the man who had hit her. It had only happened a few times, exactly 3, but it also seemed possible that it could happen again, even though the movie producer had promised that it wouldn't. So she drove cross country, doing the speed limit, buying coffees from Starbucks along the way. The beach house turned out to be perfect. 2 small bedrooms and a bathroom on the 2nd floor with a view of the ocean. A front porch where Allison could drink her coffee and breathe in the ocean air. Almost all Allison knew about North Carolina was from a long ago vacation, and it was wonderful, her favorite childhood memory. The road trip had been insanely long, a caravan with another family. They had taken regimented bathroom stops. When she woke, she had been delivered to a house with an oval swimming pool and a view of the ocean. Allison remembered a large pink dolphin float in the pool with a cup holder built into it for drinks. All the parents got drunk every night, and everyone laughed a lot, and the kids were allowed to do whatever they wanted. And that's the opening scene of the book.
Thank you, Marcy. The chapters for this book are so efficient, and just so much happens. Like I read this book in one plane ride, and then because I read it so fast, I didn't have another book, so I read it again on the plane ride back. Because I thought, you know, I would read it, it would be slow, and then I would put it down and eat something. I didn't eat anything. And it was just sort of this like dynamite book that I just went, you know, like all your books, Marcy, I went from beginning to end, in like one sitting. I didn't even pee. So like that's like a testament.
Sorry. I know that's not what you mean. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but I was just like stuck because I was like, what's gonna happen to Allison? What's gonna happen to this story? And I always read the acknowledgments first because I love reading kind of like what creates a book. And this is your 5th novel, so congratulations! What an accomplishment. Does this feel different than your other novels? You know, Very Nice was your previous one recently. Obviously, you know, Red Car from the beginning. But what kind of did the 5th one feel different? The same?
I guess they all feel different. Like, yeah. Like I remember like the Red Car, for some reason, there was a gap between Bad Marie and the Red Car.
Yes.
I mean, you've now written your 2nd novel. Between the 3rd novel, I had that fear. I thought I was never gonna write another book. I don't know why. It was really irrational, but I was really scared. And then this book this book is short and it came pretty close after Very Nice. And so
right.
It didn't have that kind of insane gratitude to it. It just had more like, I don't know, expectations, or I have no idea, but they all feel different and they're all really nerve-wracking, and you just never know how people are going to react to them. So it's been interesting. Like people, when I put out Very Nice, which is a book I really loved, it's so entertaining and it's so much like a soap opera that nobody took it very seriously. I was like, oh, I didn't know that would happen. So
wait, can I just show this book because I just have it here?
Oh, cool. Look at you.
Also a great cover. What do you mean? Like it was that felt different than this book writing it, or?
Yeah, it felt different. Maybe they designed, you know, for Very Nice, my publisher designed me hats, and that was really fun. Like they made smat, you know, it's all good. It's also very weird. Well, I mean, this could be your conversation, having a book come out. I guess people say the pandemic is over, which I don't quite feel, but having a book come out in the pandemic is really difficult. And then, and it's just quieter. Like I haven't gone out to one celebratory lunch with my agent and editor and publishing crew. You know, I love that shit. Like I really do. I just care.
Yeah.
You know, funny stuff.
Well, I mean, it was, you know, for me, like COVID, like there's just this crazy thing with COVID in my book, but with your book, there's a hurricane. I'm not spoiling anything. It's in the title. And that did feel sort of like this natural disaster that kind of smited this person's existence. Like by the 2nd chapter, like it's gone. You know, like her beach house is gone, and then that really generates and starts the story. And I think there's just this acceleration of plot and pace, and you know, you move from beginning to end. And it was also very clean, like how you always do everything with stories. It's very clean, compact, and efficient, yet without compromising kind of the emotional heart. How did you come up with this story? Because it is crazy at some points. Like, it's nuts. By the end, I was like, oh my God.
I didn't even know. The funny thing is that I honestly didn't know that it was nuts while I was writing it. I just didn't even know. I mean, I knew the hole in the head part was nuts. There's the character, and I won't give away too many spoilers, but when I was in graduate school, there really was somebody who wrote a story where the title of the story was called A Hole in the Head, and it was just like the worst story like ever written. The way
that's actually a line from you. It was the worst story.
It was a line from the book, and it was really real. And I just like, what I like about writing, and maybe you have this too, is like when these real things in your life just suddenly get put in your book. Like I never knew that the worst story ever written in graduate school would be in my novel. You know, that's really.
Wait, did somebody else write it? Like somebody else
wrote the worst story ever written. And
okay.
I haven't been in touch with him in so like since graduate school. I just don't think he's gonna find out. But otherwise, I'm sorry, Chuck. And it was bad.
No, it is actually true. Like I think about during my MFA, there are stories that I do remember being very bad. I actually can remember the specific line that was terrible.
Really? Wow.
It's just stuck in your head. Yeah. You know, nothing kills a story like a really bad metaphor that never. But for some reason it sticks because it's so terrible, and you're just like thinking about it all the time. But that did make it into your story, and so you started with this idea, and you know, obviously. When this book came out, there was also your Lit Hub article about how you didn't know that there was going to be a hole in the head of this character until it happened. And I do want to, like, Flannery O'Connor says something similar to that, right? Like, she doesn't know that something's going to happen until she's like writing that sentence and it happens. And was that it? Was that kind of just like you were writing, and then
Yeah.
ooh, that happened?
Yeah, that's basically it. Like, I don't have an outline and I don't know what's going to happen. And I mean, there was a place, I mean, this book was pretty much exactly the way it was until about 2/3 of the way through. And I think I lost control of the plot, where I just suddenly didn't want to face the plot. And so, and I think this is in my Lit Hub essay, I'm not sure, but there literally was like about 100 pages where this character is sad and she goes out for turkey sandwiches and she swims in pools with her friend, and that's it. And then it kind of ends. And it's and then my agent was like, well, this is really great, Marcy, but what about this? Aren't you going to refer to that? I was like, do I have to? And he's like, yeah. And then I just wrote this crazy off the rail kind of like, I mean, the next draft I gave him was completely nuts. And I didn't know that, but I did know when I was writing I knew when I was writing boring pages, by the way, that I knew I was going to get called out on them. I tried to submit.
You know, it just nothing is happening. Like, I like turkey sandwiches.
Yeah.
Roll with turkey sandwiches.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, I honestly think that all the scenes that I cut were all good. Like, they were all perfectly good scenes and interesting dialogue and interesting conversation. But things do need to happen. And when something really awful happens to a character in a book, you can't just never refer to it again. And that's essentially what I tried to do. I wanted the character just to forget.
It's sort of like, I feel like almost a short story technique, where you're kind of like in a short story, maybe you could get away with it and kind of it could come out differently, but with a novel. Given how extreme the beginning was. Oh, hello. Funny, you know. I know you, but I think she doesn't know me.
See, you're at home. You can have all of this action. Oh, wait, you need the charger?
Oh my god. Hi.
This is so unprofessional.
Sorry, my bad.
Hello.
Sorry, my mom.
Well, maybe like if my mom is watching, she'll be happy to see me.
Okay.
Okay, hello.
You're back. All right. Parenting in live action. So what were we saying? Okay, well, I was saying, what was I saying? Well, you could kind of like not refer to the big event at the beginning in like a short story, but probably you couldn't do it in a novel. Because it's such a good like plot point. Like, her life is just destroyed so easily. It's like this just like authority, like authorial authority, right? Like you kind of just take it away and you sort of see how this character rebuilds, right? And that's honestly one of the, it's not really a redemption story. It's just one of these stories like, how is she going to pull this off? How is Allison going to pull this off and get it back together?
Right.
I feel like the way that you like Hurricane Girl is written, you know, and Very Nice was like a first person, and this you're going back to third person. There's sort of this like really cyclic way that you wrote, sort of like almost repetition. Like, Allison was thinking about this hole in her head wasn't closing, and then it's closing, and then it's not closing. Was that something you kind of bumped into as you were writing, and you were aware of, or it was like a very natural process of this book?
I mean, I was aware of it. I feel like once you put a hole into somebody's head, like, it feels like that maybe isn't something you're going to forget. So I think whenever Allison is kind of like uncomfortable, it's kind of like having a scab on your face from a pimple, and you just kind of check on it. So
yeah, you're always checking on it.
Reflex, yeah. It heals at a certain point.
It heals, yeah. One of my favorite characters in this book is this character called Danny Yang, and he's a doctor. And I recently wrote a story about a doctor, and so I'm like very kind of like I have this soft spot for sort of doctors and stories, right? How did that character come to being? Kind of Danny and Allison coming together.
Yeah. I mean, that was something I hadn't even intended to do necessarily either, which is funny. I love coincidences. I just love writing coincidences, and I know people will sometimes in my novel Bad Marie, the coincidences are again like over the top. Like, she meets this writer whose book she read in jail. Like, the chances of that happening are really small. But so when I'm writing this, I have her in a hospital and I need to have a doctor, and I just thought, wouldn't it be funny if she knew the doctor? And like, oh, and then I just kind of like I go back into my past, and I just pulled out an old boyfriend from my past and I made him into the doctor. And so, and I changed his name, and the old boyfriend was never on that track, you know, isn't I think he works in clean energy. And then it's just fun. Like, I like, it's like writing. Sometimes I know people who say that they don't even understand how we can write fiction, because where do we get these stories and where do we get them? And so I feel like stories are completely made up, but I'm just always stealing from my life, because I guess it gives me some grounding, and sort of pleases me to write things that I know about and twist them up. And so I'm always pleasing myself when I write. Like I really like enjoy writing. Like I feel like the torture is sort of the in-between not writing stages and worrying about what to write. But when I'm actually doing it, it's like a fun process. And I like putting things in it that I know.
Right. I mean, that's true. I mean, I think a lot of fiction comes from maybe lived experiences that you are just given the ability to kind of mold and kind of transform. But there is this foundation. And I agree with what you're saying. Like sometimes when you're writing, just something that has happened to you comes in, or something that you've heard has happened to someone else, just kind of plops into the story and into the event. So with this book, what was every book is different, but what was kind of the funnest part of this book to write? It sounds like you don't write with an outline or sort of a roadmap, which to me kind of sounds a little scary, but very, very exciting,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted a beach house. And so I think that I knew what I was doing. Like, I was like, what if somebody gets a beach house and it's taken away right away? So that's what I did. Like, that was intentional. That didn't happen by accident in the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
I was going to do that. And I sort of do like the idea of like, it's still awful, but like this character has his new boyfriend, and it's kind of like the appeal to him really beyond being nice is that he has a swimming pool. And so it's really fun. Like when the swimming pool closes, is she going to continue this relationship? It seems so absurd, but and I've never been in that situation. I've never had to make that kind of decision, but I'm often like meeting people and finding out they have pools, and they suddenly do become much
they kind of raise up in your,
oh my goodness, like I meet somebody and they're like, you have a pool, and I'm like, oh, like maybe they're good friend material even. And so I've gotten myself invited to swimming pools where they might not have invited me if I didn't say something.
Say something. Do you feel like in your future is sort of a pool in your backyard?
Well, I have a backyard right now. I have my own. I mean, that's a parallel between Allison and myself, in that I have a house right now, which I didn't have when I wrote that book. I was living in an apartment, and now I have my own house, and that's amazing. And it's not in a hurricane zone, and the backyard is small but really nice. But it's got a rock garden, which is how it came. So there's no room for a pool, like, so
you're gonna have to like get rid of a lot of the situation.
I could do that though, right? Sure.
No, I mean, so this book, no outline. You kind of started this plot. Crazy things happen. You're like, why not? Let's go with it. And I do think that's so much of your your talent and your genius, is that I just accept everything you write. I really don't think anything's that weird. And then like once I stopped reading, I'm like, that was kind of odd that this person had a pool and then she really wanted to go swimming. But for some reason you really pull it off, and I just believe you in the moment that this is exactly sort of the motivation of the character. She just wants to swim. She just wants her house back. She just wants her cats, right? And she just wants like people to kind of leave her alone. There's such, near the end, I don't want to kind of give anything away, but near the end, there's so many extreme moments, right? With her crazy neighbor, with this like wedding that just like goes terrible, right? Like all weddings, if you don't know anyone, go terribly. That is universal. So I think you did get that right. And were those kind of just very spontaneous as well, as by the time you got to the end, you're like, I sort of need to make something happen with Allison.
Yeah, I mean, I did, the wedding was definitely a way to make something happen, because that was actually my first draft of my book where I got stuck. That was what happened. Yeah, they were stuck.
That had been the first chapter.
Oh, the wedding?
Yeah.
What? No, the wedding is actually like in the middle of the book. She goes.
No, I know. But you said that was the first chapter?
No, the first chapter was giving her a house and taking it away.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean this is the first chapter you got stuck on?
Yeah, that was when I got stuck, and I'm like, well, let's put her on a trip. Like, you put somebody on a plane, if you don't know what to do, you just move them around. And so that's why she went to Miami. And, I was just like, I find that's good with writing. When you get stuck, you change the scenery, or you introduce a new character. New characters are always really good too. And then I think I was on the phone and I was stuck, and I thank my sister in the acknowledgements, because she just said, write about karma, and she gave me a little rant on the phone. I mean, that's from my sister, that rant about the Holocaust.
It is not. Oh,
that's my sister.
It is so funny. I mean, I would not want to be the person on the receiving end of that, but if I think
It should really make you cry. It's terrible.
yeah, and I think if I were watching it, I would think there's a humor in it. It's just hilarious when you watch kind of this thing unfold at a wedding.
Right. Yeah.
But I did wonder where that came from, because it did kind of come out of sort of Allison's general frustration, and then immediately, like, I was like, this is very brilliant in terms of how this dialogue is going. Yeah. What do you like writing more? Do you like writing dialogue? Do you like writing like set pieces, scenes, putting it together?
I like writing dialogue. I don't like writing description. I mean, I do description, and I love interior monologue. Like, I feel like that's really important. I just always want to have the characters thinking weird thoughts, and I like to have them contradict themselves. But I feel like, and you can do that in third person too. But yeah, I think those are my favorite things to do.
Yeah, no, I see that. And I think I don't miss description. Like, I don't sit there after your story and I was like, I really wish I knew what the leaf looked like during that Miami trip. Like, I missed like all
you can just fill in the blank as a reader a lot.
Yeah, it's true. There's this like narrative script that we have. And I think that's how you sort of get to the core of the action with this book. It's done so well. So I wanted to ask a little bit that you sort of have, like, back to that piece about revision, you sort of you're both an editor and a writer, you know?
Yeah.
Do you find that those two hats compete with each other while you're writing, or not really?
They don't affect my writing at all. I find that, like, when I'm doing an editing job and I'm working on somebody else's book, like, I find it difficult to work on my own book and edit a book. So it's kind of annoying. Like, sometimes I have this editing job and though I can't write, so sometimes I'll just have to edit like a lot really quickly, or I'm not a great multitasker, and I haven't. So many writers teach, and I haven't been a teacher, but I did teach at Gotham for a couple of years. And
I did too.
Yeah, it's a great place to teach, but I found that it was really draining. Like, my students were always sending me emails about their stories, and I was thinking about their stories, and I was teaching at night and taking the subway, and it wasn't great for my writing. So in a funny way, I mean, that's like the most secure thing a writer can do, I feel like, is teach unless you're adjuncting, which is not secure at all. But anyhow, at a certain point,
I do both, so it's like a terrible.
Yeah, it's hard. So I just sort of gave up trying to find that path, and I never. It's like, this is my skill, is like writing, so it seems pretty. They just apply to each other pretty easily, and it's
Yeah. So do you? I mean, I feel like actually I have trouble editing sometimes. Like, when I teach. I actually don't edit that much, because I'm just like, you do you, and they're like kind of they're there and they just want kind of validation in terms of what they're writing, and I just want it to be fun, right? So oftentimes it's actually easier for me to say, this is really good, like, think about this, but then I'm not an aggressive editor, because I don't want it to be, editing can be kind of an aggressive process. Do you feel like when you can't write your own stuff when you're editing, but when you're writing, do you self-edit? Do you feel like there's this core component of editing that kind of comes over?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't write straight through. Like, the teaching phrase, I think, is shitty first drafts.
Yes.
I mean, for my own work, I don't believe that at all, because anytime I open the file, I don't just open where I am and just keep going. I always go back and I read the last scene, and I kind of rewrite the last scene, I write over it, and then I keep moving forward. So I think by the time I get to the end of the book, the beginning is written so many times and the end is maybe like one draft or two.
Yeah. That's very similar to it's sort of for me. I'm always trying to get the beginning to catch up to the end, because
when you figure things out, right? You have to go back and
you're also a little bit better with the narrative. You're like a little bit better with kind of like the characters. You sort of know what's going to happen, so you have a little bit more insight about it. But yeah, it's always kind of trying to catch the beginning up to the end. Although, like, sometimes for endings, it really depends on the editor. Sometimes for endings, like, I'm sitting there crafting it multiple times, because I sometimes feel like a reader will forgive a writer's like bad book. I'm always worried that it's going to be a bad book for me if the ending's really good, right? So then I'm always like trying to fix it.
if you read a really great book and then the ending is bad, then the whole book is
exactly. And but like vice versa, right? Like, if it's like a really bad book and the ending's great, you're like, oh, you remember it. So like sometimes the ending, I'm just sitting there for like 5 months just thinking about how this book is gonna end. Did you know the ending to Hurricane Girl? When did you know it? I sometimes feel like people know the ending by the middle.
Well, I guess I didn't because I had to cut those 100 pages.
Oh, 100 pages.
Yeah, no, when I cut from the turkey sandwich.
100 pages. You didn't say it was 100 pages.
It was about 100 pages. It was so easy to cut them. They were so boring. Like I cut
You
them
wrote
out
100 pages of swimming and turkey sandwiches?
pretty much, yeah. Because there was another swimming pool. There was a place where I used to live that was like had a swimming pool hotel where it was like a pool on the top floor and you could go swimming there. So when the pool closed, I just had them go to my gym pool. Yeah. It's so boring. It really was
So many pools, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so then I didn't know, like I mean, they went to a wedding because my sister talked about karma. She didn't tell me to go to a wedding, but I sent them to Miami to go to a wedding.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, no, I didn't know the end. I mean, I send this character to Walmart and she buys some very specific things.
Yeah,
Which kind of forecast the ending, but I still didn't know if she was going to use the things. Like I didn't. No, because this character is a horror writer, and there's like a line in the book where she's like, if I were watching this horror film, I would scream, "Get out of this house right now."
Yeah.
And I just reread the book like about 2 months ago to remember it because there's so much time. And I'm reading the book and I'm thinking, get out of this house. Like I felt this thing. It was really scary. It's insane that she goes back into the house where and then stays there. It was nuts.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. Maybe because the books are crazy that I don't know they're going to be crazy. Maybe that's why they actually work. I don't think
they're crazy. Like you had this amazing ability to, afterwards I'm like, that was really kind of crazy. But then like in the middle of it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course it's happening. Yeah. Like, of course.
Day to day, there needs to be reality to it.
Yeah, but I think that's very real because, living through the pandemic and all the crazy crap, like now, right? You're just like, well, why not at this point? This nothing is really that surprising, right? And nothing is even too extreme in real life. So you're like, well, of course this could happen, right? Yeah. So there's kind of this like funny family dynamic with Allison and her brother, right? In this story, and there's kind of this sense of like, the mother, the brother, and this sort of like, I wouldn't say this like evil force, but this certainly negative force that sort of encroaches upon her as she's kind of living through the narrative. Is that something that you were kind of aware of, that you were bringing in, or just like you were saying, naturally as you were writing, it kind of just flowed through?
I mean, I really do think that the hardest scene for me to write, and it wouldn't be what you would think would be the hardest scene. The hardest scene for me to write is when she comes out of the hospital and her brother and the wife, it comes over with the baby to visit. And that scene was so difficult for me to write, and I don't know why. And that scene just kept it was long. It was like almost like a 10-page scene, and all of the scenes in my book are really short, but there's so much material I wanted to put in. And there was also like, what do you know, or what don't you know, or what you're going to reveal. I had to rewrite that scene like so many times, and it was so difficult. Like I struggled with that one scene. Maybe I think that's a scene that people probably just read over and don't take notice of, probably. Yeah. But that one was really hard for me to write. And
I mean, I thought that scene was great, but it was, but you know what I mean? As like a reader, I'm like, as a writer, you're harsher on your own stuff, but as a reader, you sort of just kind of fall in line with the story, right? And she has this, there's that moment where she has this sort of, like, Allison has a desire. She has motivations. She wants her house. She sort of wants, a family in many ways. She wants some sort of human connection, right? And one of the wonderful things about Allison, when I was reading her, is that she kind of has this like numbness when these terrible, terrible things are happening to her. And was that something you were consciously trying to think about? That generally, when we're dealing with trauma, like any kind of trauma, right? The more extreme it is, after a while, we just like tune out, right? And we just try to go on autopilot, even though there's nothing else Allison can't do anything to improve her situation.
Right. Well, she could just go to the bathroom and take some pain pills, I guess. Like, that scene, she takes more than she's supposed to. Like, that's the one at home time. Yeah. I didn't know I was writing a book about trauma until after it was published, and then people asked me about trauma a lot. I'm like, did I write a book about trauma? I'm like, oh, I guess.
I don't think it's necessarily about trauma. It's just like you sort of do this great way that the entire book sort of acts as this like metaphor for something. Everyone can kind of put in something that they've gone through, which is essentially like a hurricane knocking down their beach house.
Oh, I
Right?
love that. That's such a, I mean, I would have never thought of that, but it's true. Like this knockdown beach house could be somebody else's anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you could fill in for it.
No, and I think that's like what's great is that there's almost this like allegorical quality about it, because I was like, oh my God, this is like what kind of the last 3 years have been like. This is like sort of my like addiction to work, blah, blah, like just everything gets like wiped out in my life. And yet, you know, a really good writer is able to kind of create something very concrete out of that and create kind of this like story out of that. So, I mean, I think that's why this story was so addictive, and it just reads so quickly because every line kind of like cuts through and is just like so forward and pace wise. Would you say this is a thriller?
I think it becomes a thriller. Yeah.
It does become a thriller. Yeah. Do you watch? Oh, my dog's back. Do you, what inspiration for this?
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't watch horror at all.
You don't. No horror, no thriller, nothing.
No thriller, not really. No. Yeah.
What do you watch anything, or do you read anything that's like similar to this, or this just kind of came out fully?
I mean, I watch a ton of television, of course, but no, I think this just sort of came out. I think I was trying. It's so lame. Like, I've written too many books at this point about writers, and I feel like I'm not willing to do research. And I think with this book, I was going to try not to write a book about a writer, so I made her into a horror writer. And she's still a writer. Like, it's just so, I have to do some research and write about a different kind of character. But I did at least use the horror writing. Like, I thought that was really fun. And I have seen horror films. It's not like I watch them now, but when I was younger, I saw Scream and I saw all of those movies. I know how they work. And so it's yeah.
Well, the thing with this is, you know, it is horror, but it almost feels very normalized horror. And I think that's kind of an explanation of how like the last 10 years have gone in terms of 5 years or whatever. Like, everything just gets normalized, right? And then
well, to me, horror, like, there's just as much horror. I don't know, like the beeping of the beeping of like hospitals. Like in your book, Joan is okay. She works in an ICU, Lem. And when I go into hospitals, I just have so much admiration, and like, I don't even understand how doctors can do it, to tell you the truth, because they're so loud and there's so much beeping. And I just really, the beeping just makes me crazy. And so part of regular life. And I think that's in the book. And so
it's like, I think you like, well, it's like she's in the hospital. Well, it kind of mimics her brain injury, right? She's like, you can't tell if the beeping is from her mind and whatever. And Danny Yang, the doctor, is just so funny. I don't know how many Danny Yangs I know in my life, but the sense of like, everything's gonna be fine. You know, you were on the brink of death, but I brought you back, and now you're fine. And aren't you glad I saved your life, even though I didn't ask for consent or anything? I just saved your life because I'm very brilliant. I don't know how many people I know who's like that like, because everything is life and death, there's no sense of,
I guess they have to, or they wouldn't be a good doctor. I think if you were a doctor filled with doubt, that would be really bad.
Yeah, there's no doubt about anything. And sometimes that can be like,
yeah, I couldn't be a doctor.
Like, but sometimes, you know, I just had like a doctor friend come over yesterday who sort of is having this like existential crisis, but like the sense of inability to deal with like ambiguity, you know. And Danny Yang never deals with ambiguity. Right? He's just like, Allison, are you in or are you out? Right? Like, this is sort of how he deals his cards. And I think there is and it's like, well, if you're in, then we're gonna get married, right? Like, the sense of there's this almost extreme acceleration of how a relationship is going to go, given how like binary he sees things. And that's true. Like, that was a lot of part of my character of Joan, that I was thinking, I just see it. I just know that character. It's really a sense of efficiency, I think, for them. Yeah. Because if they sit there and like dwell about the ambiguity, they won't do anything. Right. You know.
Yeah, it's another extreme.
Yeah, it's another extreme. So you said you didn't know research for this. You didn't know. You don't like doing any research for your novel.
I did do research on brain injuries. I totally did, because I don't know anything about it. And so that kind of, I had the injury, I moved on, I went back and I put that in there. And so like little things that I didn't know, like watch a light back and forth, like that was research. I found that out. Yeah. Sitting up after brain surgery so the swelling doesn't go down. Like, I couldn't have made that up, but it's not the best research. Like, I didn't go, And I haven't, we could do it right now. I haven't been busted on it up until this point, and so it still could happen. But I didn't
I'm not
interview.
gonna bust you on it. I don't know.
I didn't think you were, but I didn't interview a neurosurgeon. I just used Google.
Yeah.
And I do also edit books, and I literally did take on the job while I was writing this book because it was about a mother whose son needed emergency brain surgery in Hawaii. And I thought, oh, this could be really useful to me. That's terrible, but it's really true. So I edited her book, and I learned about her son's brain surgery. And I think I did a really nice job editing her book, but I learned about what happens after brain surgery. So that was research, and I got paid for it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, I think I actually think with medicine, sometimes the less you tell like a reader, the better it is, you know, because it can get, the lingo is intense. You don't want to show off. It's like, it's just like a whole ecosystem, right? And I think what the reader does fill in, oh, brain surgery, and you know, he's going to save lives, and he's sort of doing his own thing, and Alice is just kind of along for the ride and things like
And
that.
I've been in hospitals, and I know the people who wake you up to ask you what you want to have for meals and stuff.
Yeah, and
I feel like all of this is research.
the bad hospital food.
Terrible.
Bad hospital food. I like, the thing with me is like I've been in hospitals since I like, you know, in high school, because you have to volunteer and shadow and things like that. And I think like I didn't realize I didn't like it until like I just stopped going to a hospital, and I was like, oh, I didn't really like that period, just because everything's very sterile and everything's sort of like the beeping, but there's this like uniform that everyone's in, and Danny is certainly part of that uniform.
Yeah.
So what other things do you want to talk about for this book? You know, we can go to questions, but I wanted to know if there's anything that kind of was, I want to talk about the cover, but do you want to talk about the cover? But for me, this cover was, I really love the cover. Like I'm going to show it again, because when I first saw this cover on Instagram, because I stalk you, I was like, this is amazing.
You click like on my pictures, and I had a feeling that you were like interested in my work. That's how I figured it out.
Yeah, no, because like I'm very interested in work. I'm always following kind of what you do, because I feel like it's just so adventurous, and I think I'm always kind of taking a page. I'm like, what's Marcy? What would Marcy do here? Well, she would throw this person off a cliff and then bring her back.
You know that was a voice in your head, so that's pretty cool.
And I think I want to know a little bit about kind of like the cover art and how what's the history of putting together covers, and you know, moving forward with Hurricane Girl, because with me sometimes you're kind of given a couple of options, and that was sort of it, you know.
Well, I mean, the person who I love this cover, by the way. I love it a lot, and there are elements into it. And people don't. It's made by Janet Hansen, and you showed the cover very nice, which is like the ice cubes, and so she's designed this cover too.
Oh, she did very nice. Can I?
Yeah, and those the very nice letters are like ice cubes in her bathtub, is what she told me. And so this cover was actually I was given one other option, and I really actually hated it. And I hated it, and it was interesting because it was so wild and it was so bold, which made it kind of exciting, because it was like a cover like no other, that I kind of thought I should just go with it anyway. And then it just made me unhappy. And so I went back and forth with people. That's what you do. You talk to people, and I got polarizing reactions.
Yeah. So the first cover wasn't anything like this, right?
No, it was almost like a wide open mouth with teeth, and it was black.
Oh.
Yeah, it was very different.
That's a little strange, right?
Yeah, it was strange. I don't have it to show you. But like some people don't really understand, like, I mean, and I could interpret this wrong too, because I haven't talked to Janet, but to me, this is a bleeding sun. It's a bleeding sun. Like some people think they're like legs coming out of this dot, but I think it's a hot sun.
It is a bleeding sun.
Yeah, and that's great. And the ocean, you know what I mean? And so it feels like it captures everything without being a photograph. And so it's really nice to get an artist, you know, and just have them have a vision to it. So that felt very.
No, I agree. Yeah. And then so this is the second cover, and kind of you're like. And I sort of like the text. It's very good. I'm very jealous of this cover.
Well, thank you. I mean, Joan is very striking, I feel like, but
yeah. Sometimes you have no idea, you know. Yeah. And I thought immediately I saw this, I was like, amazing, this is good. Yeah. What are you know, I want to ask, what are you working on now? But like, I know your mind is always in novels, because like novels is sort of like like, what do you do in between novels?
Yeah, it's tricky. I have this writing process that I really don't like, and it's a terrible process, and it's making you laugh, but I wasn't going to do it for this novel, and I'm doing the same process for this novel that I've done for every other novel, which is essentially I'm not working on anything right now.
Okay. That's good. That's probably good, right?
I mean, I worked on a novel in between. I was going to be like, this time, I actually have a contract for my next novel, which I'm so grateful about. It's so amazing, but I wrote like about 80 pages of a book. So I was like way ahead. And then I just decided that they weren't working for me. And so that was really kind of sad and depressing.
How do you know when something's not working? Like what is your kind of
thing? I don't know. Honestly, with those pages, they might have been working. I think they might have been a little bit too autobiographical, and that made me uncomfortable. And I think I don't want certain things out in the world. And so that might have been part of it. I had one friend, I have like the same readers for every book, and one is a friend. Right. And the friend was like, I think this is the best thing you've ever written. She did that. And then the other reader was my agent. He was like, well.
Your agent actually seems like this, like sort of like this like voice of reason, but also all right.
He's got this epic, I mean, he's on vacation right now, so he's not watching. That's probably good. He's got epic, I mean, he's been my agent for my whole career, which I think maybe since 2005. Like, he mattered a good deal to me, and he feels like family, and it feels like, I mean, this is my work, but like, your agent is the person who takes care of you in a way. Like, they give you your money, they take care. So if he's lukewarm about my work, I don't have to listen to, but that just brought me so far down. So
well, he said and then he didn't need to say anything else. Was that
yeah, and he was like, if this is what you want to work on, I'm going to support you. And that's not usually his response to my work. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, sometimes I do oscillate between like how much is too personal, how much is not personal.
Yeah.
But it's the sense of like, even if I bring something in that's personal, I can always change it, right? Like I could put it somewhere else and protect it. Yeah. But there's like certain things like personally that I'm just so, I feel so passionate or angry about that. I'm like, I just need to figure out how to deal with this material in a way that is not like I'm gonna hurt everyone that I talk about with, but it's also important that I kind of like get it on the page,
It's a real balance, because I never it's so hard. It's hard to like not hurt people if you're writing. I mean, that's why I don't write memoir.
Yeah, but that's like what writing is. Like, I mean, I was talking to Sigrid Nunez about it, and Sigrid was like, what do you think writing is if you're not selling out someone to a certain extent in your writing?
It's actually really nice to hear. And this book upset somebody. It upset somebody, and I think I've already made peace with the person it upset. And that was really upsetting to me because they matter to me. And I just like TV. I was watching, I'm not a huge Sally Rooney fan, but I was just watching Conversations with Friends today. And the second to last episode,
I can't believe you just said that, because I feel like I can't say that to my students or I get like crucified.
Yeah. It's weird, but I love her television shows. I love the shows.
Oh, it's good. It's good. They're good.
I love them. They just cast the most beautiful people. And it's
that's good. That's good then. That's good.
Yeah. But I mean, in the scene, this person writes a short story about her friend. She doesn't tell her friend. The story gets published, and when the story is published, her friend is no longer her friend. And it's like, oh look, see, that happens. So
I usually tell people, but I come from a community where even if I tell them, I send them a link, they will never read it. So that's like perfect. I'm like, I'm giving you all the warning and you won't read it, and I'm done.
But that was actually really helpful. I mean, I love Sigrid Nunez's work.
Yeah. No, she's always like, Weike, you're gonna sell out someone, so like, it's gonna be fine. And she's always like, parents are fair game, it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, thank you, Sigrid.
I don't know if she's right about that. I mean,
no. I was gonna go to the questions right now. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right.
Oh, do you want me to read the questions, or you can't?
You can go for it. You want to read them?
Yeah, I'm happy to read them.
All right.
Okay, so there's a question, was the mention of a red car, this is near the end, and I did circle this because I'm obsessed with that book. Was the mention of a red car in Hurricane Girl specifically engineered to make me lose my mind? Because I did. Okay, well, but I did too,
I love it, because I actually knew in that moment that it was going to make people lose their minds. And it made me lose my mind. Like, I was just so thrilled that I could do that, and it wasn't a coincidence. It was like, what is it? With DVDs, it's called like an Easter egg. This was an Easter egg. And
you mean video games?
Yeah. But I knew that I was doing that. I wanted people to lose their mind. And it's even more specific than that, because in the red car, I never say what kind of car it is. Yeah. And it would really disappoint it, but that's the kind of car that I
Yeah.
don't say that it is. So yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
swimming pools, red cars, you've really trademarked a lot of things. You next time, whenever you do a red car, you need to do like this George Saunders thing where you put like a TM on the word and just
Oh, I want to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I do. What I love is I do have people constantly sending me pictures of red cars that they see that they're interested in. Always.
yeah. I mean, I would
Always.
never get a red car because I think I would get pulled over too much.
Totally.
I love
Yeah.
this concept of it because it just is, again, what you do, which is like, it's almost symbolic of something. You never drive it home, right? Because the reader can kind of fill it in, what that represents, desire or whatever. And it's just a sign of just like a great story.
Yeah.
Okay, so this question comes from Sarah. The last question was from Wes, but this question is from Sarah. I love your books and the ways you mix sadness and delight and humor and surprises. Do you consciously balance any of this in writing or revising? Like, do you ever think you have too much or not enough of some quality?
That'd be nice. No. I don't work on balance. And so I think you must need to have a quiet moment. Like, I think I must be aware of that, but I don't like write numbers or keep track, or it just sort of comes the way it comes. So
yeah.
No,
I mean, it's incredible that you wrote 100 pages of swimming and turkey sandwiches.
there really was nothing happening.
Somehow, like, can you salvage that in any way?
Well, I don't keep good track of my files, so no, I couldn't find them. Like, I don't think they exist. But I know that sometimes, like, forcing myself to write, because I mean, that's the great thing, you want to write every day, but sometimes if I'm struggling, it doesn't, forcing myself to write is not a good idea, because then that's what I'm going to do, is they're just going to go out for the
I don't think you can write every day. I mean, I try to write every day, but sometimes you just get depleted. You know, if you spend like 5 hours writing, like on Sunday or something, sometimes Monday you just don't have any great idea.
There doesn't have to be balance, but so I mean, I like that there's balance in my work, and I want to take credit for it and say, like, I know it's all there. And I mean, I think a lot of what we do is unconscious, so I claim all of it, but I don't keep track either.
Yeah. So you don't have like an organized. I only have one file for every one of my books.
Yeah, me too.
I might have 20 drafts, but I just delete it, and then I just have one file.
Right, like even if the 20 drafts are all.
Yeah. It just, I keep saving it, so I think I know people who do like draft 1, draft 2, and I'm like, how can you keep this like record of your failures for like a year?
Find what you want anyway, but yeah, it's one draft for me too.
I just have one file, and then I keep rewriting and overwriting it. All right, so this question comes from April, I believe, with a Y. Hi, Marcy. What's something new you learned or something that surprised you while writing this book?
Hi, April. It's just hard. I mean, one thing I've just sort of like, I've learned this from Haruki Murakami, is I just feel like you can just reuse material. Like when his books, it's just like they have that bingo card for him.
Yeah.
Like, drink every time there's a cat, drink every time. And there's so many things. And I'm worrying. I mean, I don't know what my next book is going to be, but I've now had 2 books in a row where I've had swimming pools that are really prominent. And I'm just letting myself, like, I would say, like, I feel like it's self-indulgent. Like, I'm just letting myself be self-indulgent in my work. And
what's your stroke? What do you start, freestyle?
I just do freestyle. I mean, I like to do breaststroke, and I'll throw in some backstroke, but I'm not like good, and I can't do.
Did you? Because I like swim in high school for like varsity, and then I think because I was like swimming, like I had to get up at 4 a.m. to swim for like 3 hours.
Fast too. I admire that.
And it was like I think I really kind of ruined a lot of joy of just like, you're just floating there, right, for a little bit.
I mean, the best thing I did during COVID, it really was the best thing, is I was worried the first summer that the swimming pools finally opened, but they didn't open until the middle of July.
Yeah.
I took private lessons at a backyard swimming pool, and I know how to swim. I just signed up for the lessons because that was the only way I was going to be able to swim. But it turned out the lessons were really, really great. And this teacher had me like cut my stroke where I put my arm in much sooner and glide. Yeah. And like I swim differently now, and I swim more efficiently, and I'm in the swimming pool, and I will sometimes swim laps, and there'll somebody be in the next lane, and I'll be passing them. I don't have stamina, so I can only like race somebody for 2 laps, and they don't know that I'm racing them, but I'll win, and they don't know I'm racing. But I don't think I was fast before, and so.
Well, the way you race someone is you have to be in their lane, and then you have to like grab their ankle and then pull them, and then like you try to drown them, and then you push ahead. That's how I had to do it. Okay. Well, I think maybe adding to April's question, just like a little bit of do you like, for me, sometimes choosing a perspective is really hard. Like, do I go first person, like third person? Do I pick this perspective? Do I switch perspective? Is that something that you kind of know from the beginning of a book?
I think that's something I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Like when you said, like, this book is in third person.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Like, yeah.
You didn't? What? How do you? What? How do you mean? You didn't know that?
Not really. I wasn't really conscious of it. So yeah.
Okay.
I knew that Very Nice was in first person because I got accused of having every voice sound the same, which
No, I mean, well, the third thing I'm working on, this third child, is in third person, and it's slightly different because I have more freedom. Like with first person, sometimes I just get a little bit more claustrophobic, but with third person, I'm like, let's just keep writing, you know. And sometimes that was something I knew I discovered recently, but like I think you know, it changes perspective can be helpful. All right, this question is from Rebecca. What advice do you have for new novelists about balancing marketing and writing? That's a really good question because I would love to know the answer to that question because I don't know. Now that you've written 5 books, what are the best ways you have found to market your books?
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually have like a quote from like a writing professor, which is good. Like it makes me sound smart, which was like, I studied with Rick Barthelme. And what he said, consider like selling a book was like, the marketing was all like selling watermelons. And so I guess you write a book, but then selling a book is selling watermelons. And I think, yeah, so you have to detach yourself and you're not selling your personal pride and baby and your child anymore. You're selling watermelons. And what I think kind of sucks, like I've gotten better at marketing. Like this is my 5th book, and with twins, I was like one of the first users on MySpace, I feel like, and I was really yeah. And there's no MySpace anymore. And like right now, I feel like I tried so hard to like make a TikTok account, and I posted like about 10 or 15 videos, and I just couldn't. I can't watch TikTok because it's too loud for me.
I can't watch TikTok. I can't even watch TikTok. I'm like a little closer in age to my students, and I don't know how they watch. I don't even think they like TikTok.
It's so annoying because everything in the clips are just so short, and they just repeat, and the noise just blares. And
I feel like I'm gonna have a seizure. I'd rather, you know.
But I feel like books are being sold on TikTok, and I can't do it. I feel like there has to just be I know that I'm more successful when I play this game.
Who told us books are being sold on TikTok? Who said that? Did Justin Bieber say that? Who said that?
There's like these influencers, and right now they're actually like taking old books. They're not taking like new books, but like they can just make a book that's like 5 years old into a bestseller. And if you go into Barnes and Nobles, they're like TikTok tables, books recommended on TikTok. So I tried. I didn't succeed. I gave up with it pretty quickly. I think you have to do it, and I think you just have to not obsess and just realize, I mean, too much of it is out of your hands. So
much of it. I think that's a good thing to say, is like so much of it is out of your
I mean, I do feel like I did meet you on Instagram, and I was aware of your clicking likes on my posts. Like I really was. I think in one time I finally wrote to you because I was like, she keeps clicking likes on my posts. And I know that, like, and I know who names are. Do you know what I mean? And I think real connections are made, and I think that's really valuable. And I've made, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've made plenty of friends in real life just from social media. So I feel like the only writer I know who's able to successfully not do it is Kevin Wilson. And I kind of just so admire him that he's just been not able to play social media. But
it's hard not to, because I'm sort of I am in the generation of like big social media. I think, you know, I'll ask my friend, like, what'd you do yesterday? And she'll be like, why did I saw that you saw my Instagram stories. And I'm like, but you could have told me what you did without telling me I should have liked your Instagram stories. You know what I mean? Like you could have said you went out to brunch at this place, you know, like, so I think it was a test. And that's what I sometimes don't like about social media, because you're testing if I saw it, and you know I saw it. So what is this conversation really about? It's like this game with social media. So question from Craig. I loved how you turned the unreliable narrator thing on its head. Oh, that's good. Like, Craig knows what he's talking about. No pun intended. It's not that Allison is throwing us curveballs so much as her injury is clouding the issues for her. How did you approach writing that? Was it deliberate or organic?
Organic. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it just happens. Yeah. I mean, I felt like she was completely reliable.
I would say that, you know, I think because if you give someone a brain injury, oftentimes you feel like maybe this person is not as reliable, right?
Okay, sure.
But maybe like people in, you know, brain injuries, they become geniuses. I don't know.
I think she knew every single thing she was doing. She meant to do.
Yeah.
maybe they weren't the best choices.
Well, I think what you did, because it's in third person, is that when I was reading it, you know, I was like thinking, is this Allison having sort of like a lapse in judgment, or is she like actually really clear-headed, you know, because oftentimes you don't really always know what Allison's thinking. But I think you gave the room that she, like, this brain injury was almost like a wake-up call for her. It wasn't necessarily like she actually got more confused. It was like this wake-up call, and then she actually kind of fell into her real self, right? Yeah. And so the reader's kind of guessing, you know, I hope this is not all a dream. I hope this she doesn't like come out like more confused. But I actually think she sort of clicks into her real self, and that's the benefit of how you wrote her. Yeah, no, I agree. I wasn't like, she's so unreliable. But there was that question. I was like, I was thinking, is Marcy playing a game on me? Because I do feel like you do play this game on readers, and I love it because that's why I read it, you know, because I love the game of like negotiation with the plan, right? But I never felt that Allison was being dishonest or distruthful. I think she was actually being very genuine. But I did wonder what you were doing.
Right.
Okay, so that kind of concludes all the open questions, and we're kind of at the end of our time. But is there anything you wanted to let us know about this book that maybe I didn't touch on, because I'm trying to cover everything, and I want to make sure that you sell this book, because I just love this book.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I love that you love this book. I think I did for this sale. Like, I think you said they're going to be book plates, and I made stickers. I drew stickers of cats, and so I think you get a really nice book plate if you order it from this event. And if anybody ever, like, I had a pre-order campaign, like you could get a free cat if you ordered my book. And if you're really desperate for a cat, you can still reach out to me. You know what I mean? I just want people to get my book, and so if that's what it's.
Yeah.
Well, you really are wonderful.
So I'm really like I'm selling my watermelons right now.
Yeah. No, but Marcy is also, you're an incredible artist and watercolor artist. And I think you have your own style when you create pictures. And I have this like watercolor roses on my billboard that you sent me.
Yeah, I did roses this summer. And so, that
was really nice. Yeah. How often do you, like, between watercoloring, swimming, and writing, like, what's the distribution?
Those are the big things, right?
Great question.
I mean, yeah.
Like how much I know this person. I'm like,
but those are my big things. Those things. I mean, swimming. I used to belong to an indoor pool, and then I stopped with the pandemic. And I think maybe this year I'm going to start again. Swimming is just so weather and summer related, which I love so much that I feel like I have to change that. And and then writing. I mean, I know. Just a fair lesson. My process is that I don't really start writing until after a book comes out, and then I start to feel like bad. I'm so close to that part, so I'm going to start writing again like really soon, and I'm really excited, and I don't know what I'm going to write, but that's coming, and that feels good, that knowledge. Like, I believe that, even though I don't know what it will be.
Yeah, no, there's something kind of like nice about just starting, and then it comes to you. You know, I think it comes to you at different speeds. Like, for the third book, I was like crossing the street, and then I was like, this would be a great short story, and then got a little bit longer, and then my agent was like, you can't sell this as a short story, you should probably just sell it as a novel. And then now I'm at page 99, so like, what do I do? It's like this.
It's just so fun to have something long to keep working on, though.
It's sort of like you said in your essay, and also your teacher, it's like a drug, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's great. I'm happy for you, by the way. That's really good.
Oh, likewise. I can't wait for you to start your drug.
Yeah, it'll be good.
We're excited to see what's next for both of you, Marcy and Weike, and the signed book plates really are fantastic. So that's another shout out to all of our fantastic guests here. Grab your copy of Hurricane Girl while supplies last. You'll be able to get that signed book plate. And obviously her love for cats is true. But congratulations again, Marcy, and thank you both again for being with us this evening for this fantastic conversation. We really appreciate your time. Everyone, Hurricane Girl, it's out now. Grab your copies at RJ Julia BookHampton or Wesleyan RJ Julia. And we just want to thank you all for being with us, for supporting our authors, local independent bookstores. It means the world to us, and we could not do what we do without you. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Have a great night.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, guys.
I'm glad
Good
you-
night.
Good night.